Hey, this is Mandy from Mandy's Tips for Teachers, and today I want to share with you a strategy for teaching vocabulary in context. And I'm going to focus using the book Mufar's Beautiful Daughters, and this is based on some of the work from Beck and from the book Bringing Words to Life. What I do is when I'm starting a new unit and I'm reading a trade book or a picture book, I'll go through and I'll pick a few words from the book. Usually I try to keep it between 5 to 6 words. More than that it makes the lesson too long, to be honest with you, when you're also doing a read aloud. So that kind of keeps it so much condensed and short and sweet. Ahead of time I'll create an anchor chart. On the anchor chart I'll write the essential question, how can I figure out tricky words, the title of the text, and I'll also go ahead and just simply write the words, and I chose five words that I've selected, and I wrote them in green here. The purple is what we added later, so don't worry about the purple right now. What I try to do is I try to select tier 2 words, and this is a rough definition by me, it's not perfect. Tier 1 would be basic everyday words kids would already know. Tier 2 words are words they may not be familiar with but would come across often in their reading. Tier 3 words would be academic vocabulary found in science and social studies, democracy, those kind of things. So I try to find words in the book that I felt they would need to know. In other books they might come across the words, they might also hopefully use them in their own writing. Came across the word temper, bountiful, tended, greed, and anxious. I'd hope they'd already know the word greed especially, but they may not. I had a lot of kids with language difficulties. They may not have that background, so I went ahead and threw it in there. So what I would do is I would show kids the anchor chart, explain that we're going to read today, and once we hear a word, we're going to put our thumb up, and then we're going to talk about what the word means. And we're going to look at the pictures, and we're going to use the words around it. So basically, encouraging the use of context clues to come up with a definition or a synonym of what the word means. So I'd read aloud the word till we came across it. Hopefully some kids would notice temper, put their thumbs up. And I would say, okay, let's read the words around it, check out the picture. And I would say, how can we chunk it up? We have temp. And then I would box it and underline it, show different ways they could chunk the word. So you're also teaching decoding strategies as well as some vocabulary. And after reading in context, we would figure out if I'm in a bad mood. For the next word, bountiful, we could break it into chunks, into syllables, bountiful, and they'd say that means, you could talk about, look at the picture, and the picture had showed her garden was bountiful, there's lots of, and we came up with the definition lots of. So it's not exactly a synonym always, it can also just be a shortened definition. Do the same thing, look for the root word and then the suffix at the end for tended, and we said it took care of. And then greed, we just talked about how the EE says E, makes a long name, it means, that was a hard word to come up with one, so I said selfish was the best one we can come up with. And then anxious was another hard word to decode, so we talked about the ang and then the us, because that was the easiest chunks for a lot of our kids to find. And then nervous would be a good word to mean the same. And then after we'd read the whole book, what I want to do is I want to make sure the kids are internalizing the meanings of the words. You could do this on a separate anchor chart. I tried to always use the larger paper. This is actually a really small anchor chart. If you can't tell, it's a smaller paper, but it's just what I had. So I tried to do it on the larger paper, have this at the top, and at the bottom I would have pre-written some sentences. And I only wrote 2 to give samples for you. And in those words, what I had done is I created sentences for kids to double check to see if the words were used correctly or not. So basically, were they used as an example or a non-example? So I talk to the kids and say, I'm going to read the sentence and I want you to think, is that the way the word is used? If that's used correctly, put your thumb up. If it's used incorrectly, put your thumb down. You can talk to your partner and then put your thumbs up. So here would be an example. It said the girl was in a temper and she gave her friend a hug. So is that used right? Talk to your neighbor. All right, everybody show me a thumb, and the kids would hopefully show me a thumbs down, because if you're in a temper, you're in a bad mood, and you're certainly not going to be giving anybody a hug. So this would be a great non-example. For the next one, we do the same thing. I said, okay, let's look at the chart. And hopefully, yet again, this will be at the top. So for some of your kids who have difficulty internalizing the words or with vocabulary, even memory issues, they could always refer back to your definitions right here. Now with here you say, okay, the girl tended to her room and she made her bed. Talk to your neighbor. Is that the meaning of tended? And I would make sure to go ahead and underline the word to draw attention to the original vocabulary word. Talk to your neighbor. All right, everybody give me a thumbs up. Is that the right meaning of tended? That's a thumbs up. If it's the wrong meaning of tended, put your thumb down. Thumbs. And hopefully everybody puts your thumb up, because tended means to take care of. She tended her garden to the story. That means she took care of it. And here she's taking care of her room by making her bed and she's cleaning it. So that is 2 examples. In my latest pack that I've written, I've actually have this explicit lesson in several of my units that I've written for Common Core. And I've went ahead and picked all the vocabulary for you, and you can select the vocabulary you feel your kids need. And I've also written all your examples and non-examples. I've done one just real recently called It's in the Teacher's Bag, and that's going to be a series of mini lessons for pretty much 3rd grade. I may try to make them for other grades, but right now I'm focusing on 3rd. And I take one standard using a picture book, and I basically hit that standard several times. And this is usually my introductory lesson for the unit. And what I'll do is go ahead and picture the words, and then I go ahead and list example situations so that you just have to copy it onto the anchor chart. You could really even project this if you have a Promethean or a smart board, so you wouldn't even have to rewrite it if you don't want to. But I love my paper, my anchor charts. So it go ahead and give you, actually you couldn't because it tells you the answer right there, so I guess you would have to block that out first. So it go ahead and gives you the sentences, so you wouldn't have to take the time to create any of it. And that it's in the Teacher's Bag series. It also has 5 days of mini lessons. It has a graphic organizers for people to apply the learning in their own book bin or in their own book that they're reading. And it also has a assessment at the end where they read a passage and they answer multiple choice and open answer questions. So it's pretty much everything you need for a week's worth of lessons and mini lessons. And it's in my store right now, and it is for the book Mufar's Beautiful Daughters, and I'm hoping to be adding a few more to that series. I hope this gives you an idea of a pretty easy to implement vocabulary strategy in your classroom. I'd love to hear some more ideas. So if you know something about vocabulary and you have some ideas, I'd love to hear what you do to have kids use vocabulary and expand their vocabulary in their reading and their writing. Thank you so much.